Welcome to Hot Takes from Title Talks, where we share the biggest stories in the real estate industry that you need to know about. I'm Lindsay Gordon.
And I'm Becky Abbott.
Let's get into our first story today. Becky just came back from the ALTA advocacy event in DC, and this year was really, really focused around the title pilot program. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So they actually had more registrants this year for Alta advocacy than they've ever had before. So we
Yeah.
had record attendance. It was actually one of my first times going to advocacy myself. A lot of people claim it's their favorite conference. I can now concur that I agree and understand why. But really and truly, for those of you who weren't able to make it to this conference, I wanted to share all of the efforts that are going on in Washington, D.C. and beyond. Um, the biggest topic of conversation was obviously that title waiver program, which last year was introduced in February by Fannie Mae. There was so much uproar that come August they actually shut down the pilot, and we thought it was done. There was no conversation to be had, everyone knows in the industry because it affects all of us directly. Right before the State of the Union, it was released in the notes of some of the topics that President Biden was going to cover, and saving on closing costs for homeowners or buyers was one of the topics of conversation, kind of sending us all in a tizzy, wondering what that meant and if there is another program that's going to be introduced. So the FHFA has said that they are looking into that same pilot, but there are a couple of problems that I'm sure, of course, everyone who's done their research is aware about, which is they didn't take this to public comments. They have not followed best practices. And essentially, those GSEs are going to be advocating themselves to essentially provide a product or service that is way outside of their swim lane. They are telling consumers that they're going to be saving costs, but in reality, that title insurance is only 0.67% of the transactional cost that they have when they're closing. Now, this pilot program has been introduced to focus mainly on refinances or second mortgages. That's something that, everything about the program is vague, which is part of the problem. We don't have specifics. They're not coming to the industry experts to compile something that would truly help the consumer. Our concern is that it's going to eliminate the protection that a title assurance, whether it's an AOL or actual insurance, would provide through a title search and through a regulated body. The GSEs are not set up and they don't have the regulation nor the foundation to support this. And in order to make sure that they're handling any claims, there would be a fee to the lender to cover that. But again, it's essentially acting as insurance when they are not a body to provide that. And so our advocacy efforts this week were to go speak to all of our state congressmen and women to ensure that they understood there were not proper policies followed. This is not a body that should be providing insurance, but more importantly, it puts the consumers at risk, that there are ways and efforts to save or attempt to save on closing costs for the consumers to make the housing market more affordable for everybody. But not by putting them at risk and creating potential financial liabilities on them because they're not aware or educated on what should be taking place to ensure they're protected in that home. And it's a one-time thing. All of the title agents who have feet on the ground, they came in there to speak to those congressmen and women to tell them to co-sponsor the Protecting America's Property Right Act. So that is the biggest thing that we're doing right now, is trying to get these people to write letters to the FHFA to tell them they really should have opened this up for public comments, and also to co-sponsor this act. And what the America's Property Rights Act does is it ensures that title insurance or assurance of some sort would be required on every transaction. We all do look at this secondary market, whether it's a refi or a second mortgage, as almost like the gateway drug, the camel's nose in the tent. It's kind of like this is just the beginning of something that could really catapult into something quite terrifying if not regulated and protected. So, in the meetings that I took part in, it was very clear that especially putting people at risk with the rampant fraud cases increasing over the course of time, that it was very important. They stood behind it and made sure our consumers were being protected.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that this is the biggest attendance that they've had to this sort of, especially after feeling like there's this target on the industry right now, by lawmakers or, the administration to try and, kind of jump into something they don't necessarily know a ton about and try and like take on housing costs by like eliminating something that's so essential to
Yeah.
protecting consumers.
They feel under attack, that's for sure. I mean, we're a vendor. It matters to us because we're attempting to protect our clients as well, which is why I was present. But there are certain title agents and real estate attorneys that I've spoke to, even over the last year, as the pilot program was initially being discussed, who were kind of watching and waiting and researching to stay informed. But after the State of the Union, most everyone I speak to says we can no longer stay quiet and we need to do something about it. I'm not someone who's going to sit by the sidelines. So they definitely had people show up in droves, and it was exciting to be a part of it.
At this point, is there anything that like our listeners or other title agents in the industry could be doing to help support ALTA's
Yes,
efforts?
absolutely. The American Land Title Association has tons of resources on what's going on, but the Title Action Network has templates and letters that you can literally go right to their website and fill it out. So we'll throw some links in our comment section.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And then one other story that we wanted to touch on today is the notion of rate cuts and the fact that there wasn't one this week. The chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yun, said that quote, he thought there'd be rate cuts by now, by this point in the year. And
We all did.
I know. And so there's a lot of people talking about June and how June might not actually result in another rate cut. Yoon is saying that September looks likely. I was watching something from CBS about maybe December. Economists talking about, really not seeing a rate cut until the end of the year. Yoon also mentioned that he expects to see existing home sales up 9% this year over last year. So obviously last year was really under what we expected, and this year is going to be a little bit better. The beginning of the year, he said that it has definitely been a struggle for home sales, existing home sales, to match the pace of last year or exceed the pace of last year, but that he does think that we'll end the year up by 9%, and then in 2025 that will be an additional 13% over this year. So slowly
Working our
improving.
way out of this hole.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, just kind of waiting on the sidelines. First time home buyers looking to, get into the market, who are just kind of waiting for the rates to drop. So there's a lot of stagnation and a lot of people just kind of waiting for something to happen, which is definitely impacting the overall housing, market activity.
Yeah, I know some are saying, we thought there were going to be two rate drops before the end of March. That obviously didn't happen. Some are saying now, maybe September, maybe even as late as December. And, with the election in November, it's just truly unpredictable what will happen. I think at this point, all Americans are sitting here thinking beggars can't be choosers. And if a rate drop could just come at some point at all before the end of the year, then that would be a fantastic. To your point, we're hoping to climb out of this kind of depression in the market that we've seen in transactions, and look forward to a brighter future.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Everyone just has to remain strong until then.
Yes. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. This has been Hot Takes on Title Talks with Lindsay and Becky, and we can't wait to talk to you in a couple of weeks.